Week 5 booms and busts. Ravens and Bengals light up the fantasy football scene. Week 5 of the NFL was a breath of fresh air after a September filled with uncertainty. The standout matchup featured the Baltimore Ravens and Cincinnati Bengals, who delivered an incredible 41-38 overtime thriller, racking up a staggering 962 total yards of offense and showcasing an array of fantasy stars. Fantasy boom. Ravens and Bengals. Lamar Jackson shined in this high-scoring affair, throwing for 348 yards and 4 touchdowns while adding 55 rushing yards. Despite a couple of fumbles and a safety, his explosive plays made him a must-start fantasy quarterback. He spread the ball effectively, targeting Zay Flowers, 7 receptions for 111 yards, and Rashad Bateman, 4 receptions for 58 yards and 1 TD. Isaiah Likely also impressed with 2 short touchdown receptions, highlighting the versatility of the Ravens' passing game. Joe Burrow was equally impressive, completing 26 of 39 passes for 392 yards and 5 touchdowns. He leaned heavily on his star receivers, with Jamar Chase, 10 receptions for 193 yards and 2 TDs, and T. Higgins, 9 receptions for 83 yards and 2 TDs, leading the charge. Burrow has bounced back after a rocky start to the season, now boasting 12 touchdown passes in his last 4 games, though the Bengals have unfortunately lost 3 of those. Derrick Henry salvaged his fantasy day with a touchdown and a clutch 51-yard run in overtime, proving his big play ability even when the overall numbers aren't overwhelming. Notable mentions: Colts and Jaguars. The Indianapolis Colts also provided fantasy intrigue, particularly with Joe Flacco, who threw for 359 yards and 3 touchdowns against Jacksonville. However, his defense's collapse overshadowed the performance. Meanwhile, Trevor Lawrence excelled with 371 passing yards and 2 touchdowns, targeting Brian Thomas Jr. effectively. For the Jaguars, Tank Bigsby emerged as a potential fantasy asset with 101 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns. As he continues to improve, he could be a valuable addition to rosters moving forward. Other fantasy booms. DJ Moore shone for the Chicago Bears with 5 receptions for 105 yards and 2 touchdowns in a dominant win over the Carolina Panthers. DeAndre Swift continued to be a focal point in the Bears' offense, racking up 120 total yards and a touchdown, proving he remains a reliable fantasy starter. Ramondre Stevenson managed 89 rushing yards and a touchdown against Miami, showing resilience after previous struggles. Early window busts. Josh Allen had a rough outing against Houston, completing only 9 of 30 passes for 131 yards and a touchdown. His struggles highlight the need for the Bills to rethink their offensive strategy. The Miami Dolphins struggled to score touchdowns, with their only TD coming from fullback Alec Ingold. Key receivers Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle failed to find the end zone. Deshaun Watson's ongoing struggles continued against Washington, managing only 4.5 yards per attempt and suffering 7 sacks. Quick hitters. Kyren Williams continues to dominate the Rams' backfield, scoring consistently and making him a key fantasy asset. Tucker Kraft has emerged as a reliable option in Green Bay, filling the void left by injured starters. Garrett Wilson saw a massive target share but struggled to convert, illustrating ongoing chemistry issues with the Jets' quarterback. Conclusion. Week 5 was packed with thrilling performances and significant fantasy implications. The Ravens and Bengals showcased their offensive firepower, while other teams began to emerge as potential fantasy goldmines. As we move into Week 6, the focus will be on maintaining momentum and navigating the injury landscape that often plagues the NFL. Unprecedented defensive feats highlight NFL Week 5. In a week filled with surprises and high drama, Week 5 of the NFL delivered moments that seemed straight out of a scripted playbook, particularly during the late afternoon games. Historic defensive touchdowns. For the first time in NFL history, 2 defensive touchdowns of at least 100 yards occurred on the same day, and they happened mere minutes apart. Seattle Seahawks vs. New York Giants, with the Giants threatening to score. Running back Eric Gray fumbled the ball at the goal line. Rayshawn Jenkins scooped up the loose football and sprinted 102 yards for a stunning touchdown, flipping the momentum in favor of the Seahawks. Denver Broncos vs. Las Vegas Raiders, moments later. Broncos cornerback Patrick Surtain II made his mark with a spectacular 100-yard interception return for a touchdown against Raiders quarterback Gardner Minshew. These extraordinary plays not only shifted the tides in their respective games but also showcased the unpredictability and excitement of the NFL. A week full of surprises. The early slate of games was equally dramatic. Featuring Aaron Rodgers' struggles, in London. The Jets' star quarterback threw 3 interceptions. An uncharacteristic performance that highlighted the unpredictability of the league. Ravens vs. Bengals shootout. The thrilling 41-38 overtime victory for the Ravens showcased elite quarterback play from both Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow, culminating in a game full of offensive fireworks. Flacco's strong performance. Veteran quarterback Joe Flacco threw for 359 yards and 3 touchdowns without an interception, yet still ended up on the losing side of his matchup. Conclusion. Week 5 encapsulated the essence of the NFL. Every game is a new story, filled with twists and turns that keep fans on the edge of their seats. The historic defensive touchdowns by Jenkins and Surtain II will be remembered as a unique highlight of this week, further proving that in the NFL, anything can happen on any given Sunday. Ravens outlast Bengals in thrilling OT showdown. Final score: Ravens 41, Bengals 38, OT. In a high-octane battle filled with dramatic plays, the Baltimore Ravens edged out the Cincinnati Bengals 41-38 in overtime, highlighted by Derrick Henry's historic performance and Lamar Jackson's stellar play. Key highlights. Derrick Henry's milestone. Henry made headlines by scoring his 100th career touchdown and surpassing 10.000 career rushing yards. His 51-yard run in overtime was pivotal in setting up the game-winning field goal by Justin Tucker. Lamar Jackson's leadership. Jackson threw for 348 yards and 4 touchdowns, showcasing his elite skill set. Despite his impressive performance, he expressed frustration over a late-game fumble that could have cost his team the victory. "This is not an exciting win for me," he admitted, emphasizing the need for better execution. Bengals offensive firepower. Joe Burrow put on a dazzling display, throwing for 392 yards and 5 touchdowns. He connected with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins for 2 touchdowns each, demonstrating the Bengals' offensive prowess. Turning points. Burrow's interception. The game took a crucial turn late in regulation when Burrow threw an interception to Marlon Humphrey while leading 35-32. This mistake allowed the Ravens to tie the game with a 56-yard field goal from Tucker. Missed field goal, in overtime. After Jackson's fumble gave the Bengals a chance to score, Evan McPherson missed a 53-yard field goal attempt due to a low snap, swinging momentum back to the Ravens. Game analysis. The contest was a thrilling display of offensive talent from both teams, with records being challenged and legendary performances delivered. Jackson's ability to make unconventional plays was epitomized by a remarkable touchdown pass to Isaiah Likely, who scored after a chaotic scramble. Despite the Ravens not being at their best defensively, struggling against Burrow's aerial assault, their offense remained resilient. Henry's late-game heroics and Jackson's dual-threat capability were critical in securing the win. Looking ahead, the Ravens have now secured 3 consecutive victories, positioning themselves favorably in the AFC North. With a mix of stellar individual performances and collective grit, they continue to build momentum as they aim for a playoff run. Meanwhile, the Bengals, despite their offensive explosion, will need to address critical turnovers to regain their footing in the division. Browns' struggles continue. Kevin Stefanski stands by Deshaun Watson amid loss to Commanders. Final score: Browns 13, Commanders 34. The Cleveland Browns suffered a disheartening 34-13 defeat to the Washington Commanders, dropping their record to 1-4 and leaving them at the bottom of the AFC North. Deshaun Watson's performance was again a focal point of criticism, as he completed only 53.6% of his passes for a mere 125 yards, the lowest of his career. Key points from the game. Watson's performance. Watson's struggles were evident, managing only 1 touchdown pass in a game that was already out of reach. His passer rating of 77.2 marked his lowest since the season opener against the Cowboys. Coaching confidence. Head coach Kevin Stefanski firmly stated, "We're not changing quarterbacks," reinforcing his commitment to Watson despite the poor showing. "We need to play better. I need to coach better," he added, acknowledging that the issues extend beyond just the quarterback position. Offensive woes. The Browns entered Week 5 ranked 31st in total offense. Watson's difficulties have been exacerbated by a beleaguered offensive line missing key starters and a running back core still recovering from injuries, including star Nick Chubb. Watson's struggles in context. Since being acquired from the Houston Texans and signing a lucrative contract extension in 2022, Watson has faced challenges on the field. With a record of 9-8 in 17 starts, he has struggled to maintain consistent performance, completing barely 60% of his passes and posting a concerning 19 touchdowns against 17 turnovers. Backup options. Veteran Jameis Winston serves as Watson's backup. The Browns had success in the past with a different quarterback, notably going 4-1 and making the playoffs after replacing an injured Watson with Joe Flacco in 2023. However, Stefanski's loyalty to Watson suggests he remains confident that the quarterback can turn his season around. Moving forward, with the Browns facing mounting pressure, the emphasis will need to be on improving all areas of the offense, especially as they navigate a challenging season. As Watson and the Browns look to regain momentum, they must find ways to address the underlying issues affecting their performance. Ravens vs. Bengals. Score, takeaways, and highlights from an overtime thriller. Final score: Ravens 41, Bengals 38, OT. Location: Cincinnati. Game summary. In a thrilling AFC North showdown, the Baltimore Ravens edged out the Cincinnati Bengals 41-38 in overtime, improving their record to 3-2 while the Bengals fell to 1-4. Joe Burrow put on a dazzling performance, throwing for a career-high 392 yards and 5 touchdowns. But a late interception proved costly. Key moments. Burrow's late interception, with less than 2 minutes left in regulation. Burrow's interception set up Justin Tucker's game-tying field goal, sending the game into overtime. Derrick Henry's game-winning drive, in overtime, after a missed field goal by Evan McPherson. Henry's impressive 51-yard run put the Ravens in position for Tucker's game-winning kick. Absurd stat lines. Joe Burrow, 30-39, 392 yards, 5 TDs, 1 INT. Lamar Jackson, 26-40, 348 yards, 4 TDs. Zay Flowers, 7 receptions, 111 yards. Jamar Chase, 10 receptions, 193 yards, 2 TDs. T. Higgins, 9 receptions, 83 yards, 2 TDs. Why the Ravens won. Explosive offense. The game showcased the most points ever scored in the Ravens-Bengals series, with a combined total of 79 points, making it a thrilling offensive display. Clutch performances. Derrick Henry, despite a rough outing on the ground, made the pivotal play of the game in overtime. His 51-yard run set up Tucker's easy field goal for the win, demonstrating why Baltimore brought him in. Resilience in overtime. After McPherson's missed field goal, the Ravens capitalized on the momentum swing, executing their game plan flawlessly. Why the Bengals lost. Turning point. Missed opportunities. Despite Burrow's exceptional performance and strong receiving core, the Bengals couldn't execute in critical moments. McPherson's missed 53-yard field goal late in the game was a turning point that shifted momentum to the Ravens. Defensive lapses. While the offense shone, the Bengals' defense struggled to contain Lamar Jackson and allowed too many big plays, particularly in key moments. Play of the game. One standout play came from Lamar Jackson, who demonstrated his MVP caliber skills. As he evaded defenders and kept the play alive, he found an open receiver in a seemingly impossible situation. Kevin Harlan captured the moment perfectly. How in the world did he keep it together and then find the open receiver? Conclusion. This game was a classic example of AFC North football, filled with high-stakes drama and offensive fireworks. Both teams showed their strengths, but the Ravens ultimately emerged victorious thanks to timely plays and a resilient mindset. As the season progresses, both teams will need to address their weaknesses to stay competitive in a tough division.